Welcome to GVN's Talking Comics. Here is your host, Martin Sexton.
Well, all right, welcome once again to another installment of GVN's Talking Comics. I am your host, Martin, and today
we are talking to the co-creators of actually a very well done series called Hot Valley Days and Cocaine Nights by Antarctica Press, and they're getting ready to put out the third and final issue of that series here coming in March. And we are proud to talk to the co-creators, Matthew Spradlin and Shawnee DeMott. Welcome to Talking Comics, guys.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thanks, Martin. Yeah.
All right, I appreciate it. Okay, so let's just jump right in here. Now, it's my understanding that this story is based on actual events. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, so how exactly how did you get the story, and exactly kind of break it down for me a little bit exactly how you decided to adapt this story to a comic book?
Well, the story came together. When I was a teenager, I was in the Valley at a party, and I had met the person whose the story is about, and had spent some time in that circle as an 18-year-old and saw a lot of the crazy stuff happening. I didn't know a lot about the world, but I knew that all the crazy stuff I saw was had a limited shelf life as far as people being able to live that way. I went to some parties and saw a lot of Ferraris in the driveway and a lot of crazy backyard parties, similar to like a Boogie Nights movie, minus the sexual stuff, but like the drugs and the big hair in the 80s, and I was a witness to it, and I stepped away from it and had heard about everyone getting arrested and the FBI and DEA and all these people getting involved. And I had really liked the lady who was the person in charge as a person. I thought she was a really good person, and would help people and had a really good heart. And I was years later reconnected and stayed in touch with her, and I was always fascinated by just what a crazy story it was, and how luck was on her side, in this path of bad decisions. She made a decision to not want to do that anymore in the middle of the craziness, and the universe, or good karma, what you want to call it. She was the one person that got away, and so I went and I was obsessed with the story, and so I went to her, and she wanted to be left anonymous and was just trying to live a peaceful, quiet life. And I got the rights, and went to talk to Matthew about, it's kind of funny how things work. I went to talk to him about another project, and it was a supernatural project, and met at an office in Hollywood. We had a mutual friend in the VFX business, and he had connected us, and I talked to him about this other supernatural thing, and it didn't really click for whatever reason. And then to use the elevator pitch, literally, I was standing by an elevator after the meeting, and I said, well, hey, what perks your interest? What do you like? And he was like, I like true stuff, like real stuff. And I was like, all right, well, and as the elevator was coming up, I said, hey, 15-year-old girl hitchhikes to LA from Ohio, early 80s, sleeping on park benches, gets an apartment. Her brother moves out. They meet a Colombian drug dealer, and flash to the next scene. She's running this big like hair metal cartel in the middle of the 80s and flying back and forth to New York. And he was like, man, is that real? I go, it's 1,000% real. And he's like, I love it. and I said, it's a real thing, man. And that's where it started. And then Matthew, I'll let you kind of hop in from here.
Yeah. So when he told me all of that, then I was like, okay, this sounds like something interesting. So we kept talking about it, and we decided that we wanted to put together the story in a particular kind of way, right? It was, we didn't want to do just an A to B to C biography type like story. You've seen those movies so many times, right? You know, the same things happen at the same point, the same beat, and all that. And so there were a couple of older films that were biography movies that I really enjoy. They're both by Bob Fosse. One of them is Star 80, and the other one is Lenny. It's about Lenny Bruce. And he had flashbacks in the movies, but he doesn't go back to like your regular sort of moments, right? When he does those flashbacks. So it's everything just kind of, we just wanted to construct a story that if we find it, we wanted to start it where she's already on her way out and you're having to catch up and see what led her to that moment of wanting to get out. And so when we decided to put that kind of construction on it, then we were like, okay, now let's write this thing, and got it written. And then through Antarctic Press, we found the right artist, and he had never worked on a full book before. And once we got him and one other artist kind of going on it, then we were up and moving to get the comic book made. And then it was a question of, okay, how many issues is this thing going to be? And then because of, at the time, everybody had been talking about being tired of 22, 24-page issues of comics. We're like, let's just do 3 issues and pack them full. And that's kind of what got us going on putting it together.
And that's you're talking about the flashbacks. That's actually one of the things I really liked about it. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly, hey, what happened here. It's very clear when you do your flashbacks exactly what happened, and it basically sets up where she's at to that point. And when you're talking about the art, and I don't want to screw up his name, but it looks like Farid Karami, excellent artist. Like I said, I'm not. I was blown away actually by so when you brought him aboard, did it change anything as far as how you did the story? Or did basically you give him a script and he just went from there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it actually changed quite a bit because we originally had a different artist on board and he was just having problems. I had used him before, but there were certain problems coming up and I could tell it was a little bit beyond his scope. So Farid was used at first. He started off as kind of the B artist, and then as he was showing me more and more of his stuff. It was like, oh wow, you're really good, and you have the right like feel and style, and you're hitting the tone, and everything looks just how we want it to look. So we kind of let him loose on this, and there we gave him very few notes. I gave him a lot of references. From Sean and I both gave him a lot of references about the 80s and about Los Angeles at that time, but we really didn't note him to death too much. It was really just saying, hey, maybe a splash page for this particular sequence, and maybe this lands on this page to help everybody kind of, if you'll notice, like when the flashback ends or a new timeline begins, it usually starts at the top of the page. We just wanted to make it a little bit easier for people to follow. So other than that, he was just coming up with great ideas.
Also, that and the color work of Andrew Crossley, I thought really made it pop.
Yeah, Andrew did a fantastic job on the colors.
So as I was reading through this, I had some thoughts mainly about your Lisa Janie. And I want to kind of put these out here and then just have us just kind of discuss if this was kind of the what you were leaning toward. Okay, so number one, I noticed with Janie, she has a strong love of family, but mainly her siblings, not so much, definitely not her grandfather. Her mother was kind of non-attentive. She really did have a strong love for her sister and her brother, which was kind of nice considering. Also, I also like the fact that Janie is a hard worker. I mean, she didn't want nothing given to her. She believed that if you want something, you got to work for it.
Yeah, and we didn't. Those weren't things that like we made up, to make her more likable. She really is a very likable person, And it's because of those things. She is a hard worker. She's also very like practical thinking. And she also thinks very kind of in terms of black and white and right and wrong. So even though she's at that point of, of her life, she's young and her, when she starts dealing, she's barely 20 years old or not even quite 20. But even then, it's like you can see how it was weighing on her mind. You see how like things that are happening during the 80s are bothering her. And then at the point of when she finds out she's, pregnant, then she's for sure like she's out. And those were just all things that are who she is. So it made it easier to make her that likable person.
I mean, basically, a lot of her business stuff, she was, hands-on, very hands-on, which, you would think she would try to bring somebody in to kind of do some of these dangerous, like transporting the drugs or whatever. She was pretty much doing all that on her own. Like I say, with more guts than I would have had.
Yeah. I think her she really does subscribe to that philosophy of like, I have to be the one to do it because I can do it right.
And of course, like in that kind of business, I would imagine it's hard to find people you can trust to do what you want them to. I mean, right, if you can't get someone else to do it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, agreed. And we usually talk about how, to add on to that last bit, if she wasn't so driven and wired with good energy, like if it was just a really hardened person who happened to go down this path, we wouldn't have put the energy and time into telling the story. It was the journey, and again the feelings of knowing she's a good person and knowing she would do good things in the middle of all this was really a lot of what drew us in. We weren't interested in just another story about someone that did some crazy stuff. This was important. Her character was a big driver for us to put this kind of work in.
Yeah,
I think and it really stands out. Also, of course, her sister was basically being abused by her grandfather. And I noticed that also affected her later on when I think one of the people she was trying to sell drugs to was basically being abusive to his wife, and she basically blew off the deal because she wouldn't put up with it. Which again, gutsy.
And you understand why, right?
Right, exactly.
Once you see her like do that and act kind of irrationally, because if you didn't show that, you'd be like, really? She just like blew off a bunch of money because she's angry? It wouldn't work with her character. So you're right. You have to see why she's triggered like that.
I say the whole thing was really well done, and it's almost kind of sad that it ended after three issues. But
that's good though. Like it leaves you wanting more, right?
Right, exactly. Right, like I said, the only thing that actually happened to her, of course, there's a lot in doing that kind of business. There's lots of things you can't control. I thought the idea that where she ended up getting pregnant was probably the one thing that I doubt that was really something at that time in her life she really wanted to do. But of course, as you said, that was more motivation than anything to, try to get out of it. And as you say, she was really, really lucky, because usually I would imagine in that situation, it's hard to walk away. I mean, because they won't let you. But of course, as you say, a bunch of people got arrested and kind of cleared the way for her. So she was as much lucky as I would think as anything else.
And also, it was kind of their ego. Like I'm sure that they felt like, she'll be back. It was kind of like, she can't stay away. And clearly they didn't know her as well as they thought they did.
Was she the only one who basically was able to escape? I mean, you think even her brother ended up in jail.
I can't remember how many years her brother did. Sean, you might know.
10 years, five with the state and 5 with the federal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of the people, they were arresting people for all the way up to the statute of limitations. And I remember hearing that he had done like 5 years and gotten out, and then they went and found someone else who had never been arrested, and they had traced a bunch of like FedEx or something, and they showed up at his house and were really trying to get the source out in Colombia. And they said, if you don't tell us more about the Colombian side, you're about to do 5. And then he turned over on the brother that had done 5, and the feds got involved, and they pressed charges themselves after the state had pressed charges. So it was like a ongoing. It was a big ring of people, and in one of the most colorful, outrageous periods of American culture. Like, what is crazier than 1982 to 1987? like in Hollywood, California, you can't even put it to words. It was absolute madness going on.
And, generally speaking, like I said, there was, in her business, there was no poor people involved in this thing. These were all wealthy people who basically just had money to blow.
Yeah.
And you have to take 2 things into consideration too, right? 1980s dollars, and the price of cocaine being what it was back then. It's like 2 things on top. I'm sure an 8-ball today costs nothing compared to whatever it cost back then. And it was a luxury drug, right? It was a high-end luxury drug.
It was really well done. As I'm looking, of course, I think we said the 3rd issue comes out here this coming month, correct?
March 3rd, it's supposed to drop. So hopefully it'll land.
Okay, so I've got one final question for you. Every time I do these interviews, I basically throw out a hypothetical. And like I said, Hot Valley Days and Cocaine Nights is a very theatrical story. So let's go this way. Okay, so after part 3 is released, it's cemented its place as a great series, and someone comes to you and says, okay, we'd like to make a TV series based on your book. Who could you see cast as Janie?
I have my choice. I'll let Sean say his, but he knows who I want.
I mean, there's some good actresses that, Emma Stone would be pretty great. I mean, that's aiming, you're aiming for the moon, right?
Aim for the moon.
Karen Gillan, I think, is pretty amazing. Those 2 come to mind. Matthew?
Maya Hawke. I want Maya Hawke to play her. Like, to me, like, she's perfect. Like, she's beautiful, but not distractingly beautiful. You believe that she can be tough and practical and all these things. And on top of all that, she's a great actress, and she's she can play a little bit older, she can play a little bit younger. I think she's awesome. I think she's my favorite actress to watch right now.
You've thought this out. I can see. Got anything new coming out that you want to talk about beyond issue 3?
Matthew, is there anything you want to talk about?
I mean, the only thing really on my plate at the moment is working with Sean to put together like maybe a couple of little great extras for the trade. Once we get all 3 issues out, put together a really nice first printing of the trade. And but that's about it. That's what all I'm kind of got on my plate right now.
Yeah, I've got a couple of movies dropping this year.
If you want to talk about it,
here's your opportunity. I'll keep it really short. Yeah, there's a movie called The Free Fall. It's with Shawn Ashmore and Andre Alondo from Narcos. It's got our executive producer was one of the executive producers on Get Out. I think it'll be out by Halloween. And then we have a movie with Stephen Lang called Old Man. I'm an executive producer on that one, and we just shot it during COVID, and we're in post now. So hopefully that'll be out by the end of the year. first quarter next year.
All right, excellent. That's pretty much all I got for you guys. Like I said the book comes out March 3rd, and we're going to be following it really closely. And we appreciate you spending a little time with us.
Hey,
Awesome.
thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin. It was awesome.
Thanks for listening. Come back again for another installment of GVN's Talking Comics.